So this is my breach guide on fracture. I'm going to start on defense and start over on B. So on defense, we're going to be trying to take space, these 4 quadrants, and therefore we're going to want to make plays as the initiator. We're going to need to use our util to take some of these spaces. So this is a really nice stun you can do for breach. Is one that fits quite nicely. You want to make sure you get kind of close to the corner. So this corner here, you want to get it kind of close. The reason why you don't need it flush is because enemies have hitboxes, right? They're big circles on the ground essentially, and this corner is not enough for their hitbox to fit in that little gap, so they're still going to get hit by this. And then you can also follow this up with a flash, because this flash will not blind the enemy, or sorry, the teammates that will follow up. As the teammates will be looking this way, and the flash goes off on that wall, they won't see it, and they won't get flashed. There's not really too much you can do with aftershock here. If you want to be like kind of close to them, you can do an aftershock for this. Once again, you kind of give up the chance to stun and flash here, so it's not the greatest. You can aftershock this if you like. Maybe there's not much ground that's being taken from your util for whatever reason, or maybe you're in a 2v2, one person on your team has died or something here, and they've got 2 more here, and maybe the teammate on your team is taking it a bit slow, so you're like here to like kind of help them take the space again, so re-enter the space. And then ult is not really that much used on arcade. Usually it's used on the mains anywhere, so even though it does cover quite nicely, you're rarely going to use it here unless you have like a really good read that they're going to 5-man arcade or something. Or maybe if this person, maybe your teammate here that's going to follow up on this original play is 5, and so maybe you've got your stun charge. When you hear 5, you're going to release the stun, and then you'll probably end the ball thing. That could also happen as well if you hear like 5. They hear 5 or 4 people, but obviously that's not going to happen very often. And you can also follow up with the flash as well. I won't show it, but you can. On B, what the stun usually looks like is one like this. So we usually do it like in front of like this sort of line. The reason why you want to do this kind of line is because, wait, why is my ping stuck on the map? Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, my ping was there for a long time. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The stun goes in front like this because it zones them away out of like the choke point, and if they decide to be in the choke point, they're either peeking very wide and not in a very good position. If I've got 2 players peek like running at them from main, or they're stuck in this corner while stunned. And then you can also once again follow up with a flash. It's not going to flash to your teammates who are here, but it will flash at enemies that have decided to take the wide swing from your stun. So if they're doing that, they're probably going to be running into this corner, and they're probably going to either get spammed through this, or they can get stung very easily while these players are stunned. So you do have options there for your teammates. Very, very good support play for your teammates. I mean, you can ult from this position as well, but I think it's a bit worse than this kind of ult as well. You want to be quite close with your ult, but at the same time you don't want to be sacrificing yourself. So you want to be a bit here, I think, work with your ult. But I tend to not ult off the rip on B main either. It tends to be just A main, honestly. I usually do it. Otherwise, I'm going to ult for retaking, or I'm going to ult for like certain fights throughout the map if I feel like it's if I have like a read, or if I have enough information to tell me that I should ult in this particular situation, whether it be a main or not. But yeah, this will can work as well, completely fine. However, I think you don't really need to always commit. You don't need to commit your ult to the start of the round always. Usually you want to use information, and it's hard to get information initially on B. So you don't really tend to ult there. Next we're gonna go over to Ash. What we're gonna do is gonna do post plant on B. So when you're retaking B, generally you're gonna use your aftershocks like this. You're gonna have one. You want to put them quite close to the edge like this, because it gives them. They have to run further to get out to the aftershock, and it leaves no space in there as well. So it's the best of both, where they have to run basically instantly if they're in the corner. Otherwise, they're gonna get killed with the aftershock. On this box, you want to make sure you're aiming towards the left side of this box. The reason why is because you don't want it to be like this, because it leaves a gap here. And this gap is also the one that's also not wall bangable. So you want to make sure you are getting that space. So you want to put it off this box, and therefore you get both spaces. There is also another aftershock that you can do, which is this one. The reason why you'd use this one is because then you might think someone's in this corner, or you haven't cleared that corner. And also there might be someone in like the north side of tower. and you cutting off a rotation there. This is like the 2 reasons why you might use this one. Obviously, if you manage to combine the 2 reasons into one like really good aftershock, if there's someone in this position and there's someone north side tower, it's going to be pretty strong to use this aftershock. However, it's unlikely to get kills. It will get one if there's someone here, but obviously it won't get the kill here. This is more for delay, which is going to be worse in ranked, simply. But in competitive, it can be really strong to delay them there, but not always. There are definitely better uses for aftershock anyway. Usually you want to get kills after aftershock, which is why you're going to do him in these sort of corners, right? Against these corners. If you happen to be like flanking, actually, sorry, let me do the 4 lines from here first and the flashes. So there aren't great 4 lines from CT. You can do one for terror, and you can also do one that hits both default and I think people call it like snacks, but what I do is I call this one dice and I call this one default. But I have heard like default and snacks before, but I don't know exactly if many people use that. I usually just do dice and default. So with so this one will get both of those is the point, and you can also flash off the box, flash off this backside. You can flash off this one as well. All 3 flashes are viable, and this one's probably the best because it will flash majority of the positions that I just talked about. Flash someone like peeking out tower as well. It would also flash people in main, because if you do it high enough, it will flash them from here. So be strong. When it comes down to ulting, there's 2 ults you can do. You can do an ult that mainly hits tower like this. You think they're mainly all tower, or you can do one that just goes down a bit. You just like look left a bit, and hits basically all of tower and hits all of B site. This one's definitely the one you're going to do the most when retaking. If you happen to be flanking, then I'll just quickly go over the ult. The ult is exactly the same as what you'll see on attack, which we'll go over in a second. That one that hits site and tower is basically the same one with what we just did from CT. If you are retaking, you want to make sure you don't use util until you're spotted, or unless like they know your position. Basically, you want to make sure you open up with the vandal or with your gun basically instead of with util, and then you probably can do like some sort of stuns like front sight and north side tower, or you can do ones that hit default, and then you can aftershock. I mean, to be fair though, okay. Some tech with breach is that you should always, if you think someone is in a corner and you want to kill them with the aftershock, what you should do is you should aftershock and then stun. Because if they don't get out the aftershock in time, like originally, then if they get hit by the stun, they're not going to get out of it. So you should always aftershock then stun if you have both of them up instead of stun and aftershock, because the stun will wear off by the time the aftershock goes off. Which is also a common thing on attack. You'll see sometimes. I see it a lot on TikTok as well. Breach main that does that a lot. At least he posts a lot of TikToks on it at least. That's retake on a B. I won't really talk about arcade, but I mean retake from arcade. I barely ever come from arcade on breach, but you can do some attacks side stuff, which is like stun tower, then flash for tower, for like a breach or a raise. That's more of attack side setup for arcade. Yeah, that's kind of it for B retake. Okay, so on A, I'm going to be mainly playing this sort of position. And I'm going to be stunning similar to this. Maybe I'll be down here instead for a slightly better line. Actually, I say that it's not actually a better line. This is technically probably a better line because it will stun people that try to run to this corner. There is a flash as well you can do, but the follow-up is kind of not great, right? Because you're going to be flashing your teammates. You're going to be flashing teammates that are in A main, so it's not the greatest of flashes. There is a bug you can do. If you go to about, yeah, you can like feel it out. It's like here, or you can see it. That on the map, my flash is here, even though there's a wall in front of me. So this is a bug. So I wouldn't use it. It is technically a possibility, but I don't know to what extent you might get punished for using it consistently. So I'd be skeptical about using it on a real basis, but I want to make people aware that it exists. And if it's not a bug, obviously, like if they come out and if they realize it exists and then it comes out that like they don't care, then by all means you can use it. But yeah, there's no good way to get an aftershock here really, because it's always going to leave this corner open. That's kind of it. There's not really much to do with the flash, unfortunately, other than the bug, because you need to time this flash, or you need to go through the door and do this flash, which is, isn't too much of a burden either. To be fair, like there isn't much difference between that and this. So this is what it is. You have to open the door, I guess, give away your position that you're gonna flash. And it technically makes you more vulnerable opening the door. In fact, it's quite a different. It actually is quite a big difference actually between the bug and this. But yeah, this is the flash that you should be doing. After the stun, so you do the stun and then you would run over, flash. And you may even follow up with the aftershock like this, which will hit the corner if you really want to push A main. And then if you hear a lot of footsteps, you can always ult. You don't want to be ulting. Sorry, you don't want to be ulting like this. You can do. It depends on how pushed up your teammates are. So if they are like up here, then you want to be using it close like this, so it doesn't hit them. If they're not close and you just hear a lot of people in this sort of area of A main, then you can ult like this, or like maybe ult even a bit further back, so like this. So it's going to catch the people pushing. That's also a possibility. Next we'll go over to dish. Actually no, we'll still stick with A main. You can do support like stuff for your person A main. The flash is like, where's the flash? Stuns like this. Do them from far away, do them from stand, or like you can tap the stun, knock them out as well. I like tapping stuns. I do this mainly on attack actually when I'm in like switch situations. I'll do tap stuns like this, but you can do it for the reason for like them coming out onto site as well. You can just slightly extend it as well, get all of it. Pretty good. You can flash off this wall as well. And bear in mind, you're more likely to flash your teammate on site if you do have one on site. If you do those flashes, but you can do ones like this too. There'll be smokes in front of you. You can also do this as well to split up the entry from the rest of his team or the rest of their team. So when they dash out, you can do this, and then the other players can't really get through, so they can't really support their teammate if there's a smoke there, especially. If then we go over onto dish, I don't really do much on dish, so sometimes I'll do a flash for my teammate off the dish. And then I guess I can also stun from here, but this isn't really a great stun. This isn't really a great stun. It does get the best line though, to be fair, just to get the best position though, which is like about here. So it is fine. But you can, I personally like this stun more, because it gets them if they try to push out the doorway better. Essentially, there's no gap on this left side where they can swing my teammate, swing me. As you can see on this one, there is, unless you go like super deep, but then you're kind of missing some of the other most important, like some of the more important ones against this back wall. So yeah, I do prefer doing it from here. There isn't a great flash from here, but however there is on retake. So on retake A, we do have a flash here, which is quite good. There's also flashing, like once again, flashing like this is fine. This is fine. It's similar to aftershocks as well. There's an aftershock here that you can do. Wait for it. But the aftershock here, you want to make sure you're kind of lining up with this line here. The reason why is because it gets both above and below this way, and it doesn't also. There's also the reason why I want to line it up properly, because there's actually a bug here. You can see on the map that sometimes it will go out of the map for no reason, and even on like this little like piece of like I don't know what it is, like a piece of metal that comes out. Even on there, it will do this bug too. If you do it like this, for instance, it doesn't hit the corner. For no reason really. There's just a little bit of a bug there, I think. Bit like not the cleanest of walls. It's like over here as well, and Fracture in general. I think the walls aren't that very clean for Breach at the moment, which is kind of weird because it's one of his better maps, if not his best map. So it is kind of weird that the walls aren't like great for him. If that makes sense. Like there's sometimes you can just get these bugs, or like bugs that go through walls. It's kind of weird. Then we get to the stuns. So you can do a stun like this. Is a good line because it gets the people in this slightly in these corners, like down here, and it also gets people in this corner, and which is a fight you might take for ASCT. And there's also stuns backside here. And when it comes to ulting, it's a very simple ult. You just want to make sure you get as much as possible of A site. You can also try and do it like this, so it cuts a bit of the top right corner of A off, but they still will get hit because the hitbox exists. And you'll just get an inch more in main. Obviously, it doesn't matter a huge amount because there's no way that min-maxing will make a massive difference. But obviously, like if you really want to use it, the perfect min-max, then you want to do it something like this, right? You don't need it to be like right in the right covering the corner like this. You can afford to get some extra space on the main, and that might make a difference, like 1 in 100 games or something. So it might make a difference some of the time. So I'll go over onto attack now. So first I'm going to talk about attack on B main. So generally you're going to either stun this initially, or you're going to flash this initially. It's up to you which one you want to use. Fault line is definitely better because he gets the cooldown. It has a cooldown, and flash, you've got finite of these, so you want to be saving them. But the flash definitely has more impact. Definitely less likely to die, I think, when you're using the flash, because the stun is still dodgeable, right? They can still technically run past it or run away from it and then re-peek or hold the off angle over here after the stun or something. So it isn't the strongest of things, but it is still like better than flash in some ways, because you actually still retain the ability to reuse later on in the round. When it comes to some other things that you can do, you can always aftershock some of the more common angles. Like if you want to aftershock this corner, you can do that against like ciphers or something. If you notice that he's on his camera, sometimes you can catch them by doing stuff like this. That will catch them on the camera, or catch them on a dog or a drone or something. I think probably a lot of people have probably seen the guy's TikToks. I can't remember his name, unfortunately. But he does a lot of those TikToks where he makes a funny face as well. But I learned some of the stuff from Breach from him. There are like some stuns you can do, like this line is pretty fine for backside, especially if you're against a judge or something. You can also do straight up stuns like this. Bear in mind, you are going to stun people going onto site, so you might want to do it from here instead if you want to do some tower stun and front sight stun. And that's kind of it for that stuff. And then we can do flashes. There's not really great aftershock. This aftershock is fine, but it's not great. It's hard to get everything, so it doesn't really clear the angle, so I wouldn't do it. You would probably want to just flash this. It's not, so once again, not the greatest of flashes. Not the greatest of flashes, because it doesn't actually, they're not actually going to be looking at it, maybe. There's a chance they're here, right, and they're not looking at that flash. It might be better to just flash right on this corner like this. That might be the best flash there is for this area. Just because it maximizes the chance that this person will get blind. If you do it too deep, then they won't get blind. They won't be looking at it. Aftershock as well, you can aftershock dice. This is quite a common area to play sometimes from people. You can also aftershock tower like this. It can help you take the front side of tower if someone's playing particularly defensive here. They don't have this corner to run back to, so they're forced to fight their teammate on site. They have like the front of tower. They're like this. Right there. Otherwise, you can use your ult as well. There's also ult, which is this. Generally, you want some arcade control when doing it, right? Because the best ult you can do is something like this. And as you can see, you're exposed to arcade, so you want some level of arcade control so you don't get pushed, killed before you get your ult off. This is an ult that you can do to secure the site if there's someone on site. A lot of the time on like high reload, they will recognize you have ult and they will push you. At which point, like, there probably won't be that many people on B site, if any. So you can do an ult like this as well. I reckon this is also pretty good when combined with like brim ult as well. So they can brim ult, you can kind of brim ult this sort of area, and have a breach ult with it as well, and you can really kill some people. That side they're going to like sort of wait out the ult in CT, and then the brimstone ult and the breach ult combines really nicely. You'll see that all the time as well on A as well. Brim ult here, breach ult there, will absolutely decimate people because they just can't get out the brim ult. Very good combination with brim, and it's the reason why I think breach is really strong on this map as well, is that he has good combinations with other agents on this map. Even Fade, I think, as well, when Fade gets played, breach and Fade are a pretty good combo because they're kind of cover each other's problems, which is really strong. But if you're attacking B from arcade, then you'll do something like this. I think I've already shown it on defense, but you'll do a stun line similar to this. So what it will do, it'll stun behind the box and it will stun tower. Really good stun line, and then you can do a flash of tower. And meanwhile, you'll have a raise satchel, or you'll have a jet dash, updraft dash, and things like that to get up there. And maybe even a neon, but a neon will be a bit slower because it has to use the rope. And that's kind of it for the initial arcade push. You can do flashes from this wall. You won't have stun up probably because you'll probably use it quite early. You can also aftershock ice from here. You can aftershock DT from here as well in this corner. So if you don't have smokes, this could be a good way to get an early fight. If you want to try and get an advantage, try and get the advantage in the round. If you don't have any smokes, say if your smokes died early, then you can do an aftershock like this, and it'll push people out of this area into a fight with your teammates in main. You have to do it quite far to the left though, I think. Then they actually have to push out, and they can't just sit in a corner. Actually, not quite. It's almost there. In my experience, they do just push out. I think people just don't understand the length of the ult, or the aftershock. I mean, Arcade ults, you can do one like this. Quite a good ult as well. You'll hit everything on B site. You can also do one like this, which will hit everything on C2 canteen. So if you think B site is clear and you want to do some pushing in canteen or gen, that's a good ult to do. Next we'll go over to onto A. So on A, on Dish, usually I don't play that much Dish in general on Breach, but I will just follow my teammates around to sort of support them. So you can do a stun like this on the corner, but you don't have access to that initially, so you're going to be over here. So you want to do a stun like this instead, probably. But if you do get time to go over here and your teammates are pushing up, you can do ones like this for them. You can also aftershock people at this corner. And you can follow with a flash as well to push them. Now this is the sad part of drop, is that you have to kind of find a way to drop out. So maybe you want to stun this kind of line, so it stuns people CT, it stuns people on the corner on sand, and it stuns people on rope. So it's actually pretty good. It gets rid of like majority of the angles you're going to be scared of when trying to drop out. Quite good. You can also aftershock CT like this, so if someone's in this corner like ready to peek out, then they're going to either be forced to fight you in early, or they're going to be forced to go back. You can also flash off this wall, which is also strong, because it flashes all of sight and everything. It flashes sight here, flashes people behind this, looking at sand, things like that. You would be careful that it doesn't flash teammates though, because it will flash teammates if there's anyone on the other sides, which there probably will be. It is Fracture. You can also flash for your teammates going into like heaven, and flash for teammates going into sand. Obviously these flashes aren't particularly great. You can do a flash like this as well, actually, if they're in this corner, and you flash them against this wall, which is pretty good. I haven't done that before, but that makes sense to me, so maybe that works. Maybe that doesn't. If we go from A main, which would be the last one, I think, and we'll do a stun like this. Don't think everyone's seen before. You don't have to fully charge it, you just have to make sure it gets this sort of area. And then you'll probably follow up. If you're going sand, you'll follow up with this flash. If you're not going sand, you'll follow up with this flash. And then you can either aftershock. You can use aftershocks early, but I personally use it like this, or I use it on post plant, or I use it like this. Or I use it kind of usually jump and get the angle, so you get rid of this angle. Worry about. And then I'll do a flash up here, sort of on this like little rim thing. Best place for me to flash personally. It gets quite high, and we'll get quite a lot of players. You'll also get players like over here, even in these sort of angles, which is quite good. When it comes to the ult, once again, I'm going to try and get all of A site, but you don't need to get like you can kind of min max it. You can kind of leave the corner out slightly like this if you want to. There's also I'm pretty sure there's an ult from here as well for sight. Yeah, there's one as well. Obviously, it's got a bit of a corner to it here, so you need to make sure your teammates aren't like just sitting in the edge of the ult like this. It does come out quite far to my main, right? So you want to be careful that you don't hit teammates with it. Actually, it goes out even further than I realized. You can also do the same thing like this as well. Once again, like Fracture's quite different that way, where you can do it these kind of ults for your teammates to push more area in like sand or CT. This ult would work quite nicely as well. It doesn't quite get all of CT, so people can still be against this wall, which is a common place for them to be in CT, because it like the furthest angle from the openings, right? So like a really good angle to sit in. So yeah, it might not be the best of ults, but you can use it to like take rope and sand and things. Especially if you know like a Brimstone is playing here with this smoke, it can be quite annoying to deal with sometimes. So ulting him in game out the way, it could be quite nice to take a site. So yeah, that's kind of it for Breach. My opinion on Breach has been like changing over time. I do personally think like he is easy to use, but at the same time he has like a big lack of like upper bound of strength. That makes sense. Like he doesn't really get the big risk for reward that a lot of other agents do. He kind of is quite stable, and that kind of makes him strong in his own way. But at the same time, like it can also mean like you don't have that risk factor. For instance, like his flash, he's on a set timer, so he doesn't really have like the stuff that he can do with like sky flashes or like KO flashes. Flash is always on a set timer and tied to walls. So there's going to be positions where it's not going to be very good to flash. There's going to be times where your flash is always going to get turned because someone knows the timing perfectly every time. So it kind of sucks. You need to be making something where you get it on the wall, and that's like the most agency you have surrounding your flash. So for me, like he's kind of like, I'm on the fence with him, being strong. I think if you're a good team, like if it's, for instance, in Premier, if you're like a regimented team that has like a lot of strats, Breach is great because he works really well with strats. If you're a bit more chaotic team, or you're a team that maybe is a bit worse in general than the rest of your bracket or something, then you might want to have someone different like KO or Sky, because they have a bit more of a risk factor to them, where they actually can risk more to get more reward than what Breach would get. But that's just my personal opinion on it, I guess. So I'll see you in my next video.